What's up? My name is Fresh Daily. I am an MC, an illustrator, and a host or creator of a couple of cool event series and brands. So I it's been about 9 years, I want to say, maybe, since the last release, a body of work, complete body of work of music that I've put out, which was the Brooklyn Good Guy in 2012, I want to say. So, yeah. So a lot of time has happened. In that time, I started an event series called Beat Haus. Based in Brooklyn, New York, which was a platform that gave producers, beat makers, and DJs a showcase, a way for them to connect to their fans and really play in New York, which I feel like was kind of a different market for the beat community. And in that time, we got a chance to tour with Beat Haus and create a radio show and a label and do a lot of cool things to give artists a platform. But in that time, I took a hiatus from music, and then I moved out to the West Coast shortly after that. But I was always working on music. I had a whole bunch of collaborations and guest appearances here and there. So the whole time I was working on music, building it slowly here and there, as opposed to consistently locking into the studio for like a month or two and making a complete project. I kind of pieced it over time together. And I feel like the record kind of reflects it. I started off the record explaining kind of where I've been in that time. And so now it's out, The Quiet Life 2, which is kind of more of an homage than a follow-up to the first one, I guess. Yeah. A good reason to listen to me as an MC and this new project, The Quiet Life 2. I think a great reason is there's three things that make a really classic, dope hip-hop album. And that's beats, that's rhyme, and that's song structures, the subject. And on this project, I give you just that. I'm a type of MC that never kind of lived in a sort of competition with other MCs. Like, a very prevalent thing in hip hop is, I gotta be the best. I'm gonna eat everyone. I'm gonna destroy. I kind of always just been really in competition with myself. And, that's the way I start off the album, is like, I'm really trying to beat my last projects and really be the best version of myself. And if that's something that people identify with and really feel over dope beats with dope rhymes and great song structure, then you'll love this project. And I kind of live by that. I'm really happy when people find genuine pieces of art that they resonate with and hold tight to them. So I'm hoping it'll do that for you. It most likely will.
Yo, it's still the quiet life over everything. My only competitor is me, so no settling.
So on my album, I have a couple of really great guest appearances of other MCs who I think are really talented and put forth a really good effort in hip hop. Blue is one of them, is a great example.
She wake up early in the morning just to do a hand now. She wake up early in the morning just to do a hand now. She wake up early.
There's Blue, there's Science, there's Von P from Tanya Morgan, there's Ivan Ave.
Peace be still, it's all under control. Peace be still, it's all under control. Peace be still, it's all under control.
There's Quelle Chris. So there's MCs that I know in real life and that I really respect what they do. With Blue, Blue, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and Blue is from Los Angeles, California. And it's just a thing of the internet sort of connecting us. But also we have a lot of people in the same circles that we travel in. And so he's really good friends and collaborates very often with two of my good friends. An MC named Scene, Sene, and another MC named Science. And, just these are all MCs that really make a very dope lyrical and pick really great beats as well. So that's how that kind of came about. We met each other a couple of times. We played a couple of shows in New York, played shows together in South by Southwest. So it's just kind of natural. He also put out a project that was completely self-produced that I'm featured on as well. And then for Von P from Tanya Morgan is fam. I've known them forever, and Von P is just one of those MCs that just super dope to me. Science is another super dope MC. Quelle Chris is a super dope MC. So they say you're only as good as your friends, right? So, I'm in good company, especially lyrically and people who make really great music.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of really great producers on this album. We start the album off with a great friend of mine, Chris Keys, who was a really great frequent collaborator with Quelle Chris. He also has complete projects out with Georgia and Muldrow and Oh No. Honestly, I put any amount of money on Chris Keys against any producer, honestly. He's going to hate that I say that. He's a really humble guy, but Chris is probably the illest ever. But Chris Keys is on there. Tuamie, like you said earlier, Tuamie's on there. I've known Tuamie since he was 17 years old. Super dope MC. He's definitely Beat Haus family right there. Also Shungu, who's from Brussels. He's a really dope producer from Brussels. Suff Daddy from Berlin. Just so many crazy producers on this project. But yeah, production's a really big part of. I pride myself particularly on picking really good beats. MySpace is how I linked with Shuko. There's an era where MySpace really connected everybody through music, and Shuko found me through MySpace, and he produced a single on the original Quiet Life 1 called Say Yes.
It feels good. Say yes if you win it, man. And just get it how you live it, fam.
And it was from that first single, we just stayed in contact, and he's gone on to do amazing things, but he's always, linked back with me and allowed me to make music with him. And I'm always forever grateful. There's a lot of mutual respect there. And, same with Suff Daddy. If someone were to ask me how I even linked with Suff Daddy, I can't even remember. He might be able to tell you better than me. But again, I'm sure it was the internet that connected us. And when he finally came to, New York, we were able to connect and play shows together. And shout out to Suff Daddy, man. Yeah, it's tricky. To think about a beat scene on New York, it kind of really wasn't fully existent till probably about 2013. Prior to a quote-unquote beat scene or community, right? Because scenes come and go, but communities tend to last longer. When you think about the beat quote-unquote scene in New York, it stems from beat battle culture, where you'll have one long table and there's a whole bunch of producers and they're all playing beats, rivalry against each other for a prize, and that's the show. But what that does is it's just very cyclical. It circles and it doesn't really allow for the building of community, and it doesn't really allow for things to grow. You know, if we're constantly against each other in competition, how can we form collectives? How can we really get people outside of that circle who care about this thing to really be involved? And so there was a collective / record label called Paxico that was doing small events throughout Brooklyn at the time. Some of them were in like a living room, and then it was 2 roommates, and one of the roommates was throwing an event called Coalition of the Illin with Paxico, and then the other Paxico events were happening in the living room, and it was these really cool events happening, and it really kind of put the battery in my back to kind of want to do it on a different kind of platform culturally, and provide like a really sort of bigger platform. Like, I loved the community of it, but I was like, there's so much more we could do, and I just wanted to expound on that foundation that had been laid for. And so I started Beat Haus, playing beats in a house. Crazy concept. My friend Chuck had a big basement, and we just essentially threw like a huge house party where all the DJs were producers playing their beats as sets. And that kind of started this small revolution in New York for 5 years, that there have been other factions that grew out of that. So when you think of like New York, quote unquote, beat scene, outside of Beat Haus and the people that played at Beat Haus was unique in the sense that we brought people in from all 3 boroughs, the tri-state, right? Which is New Jersey, New York, and Philadelphia was the tri-state. So, you know, there was a bunch of people that we had. We had Noah B, Chuck Le Garçon, later down the line, Nothing New, Ewonee, Brain Orchestra, Good Food, J Alpha, Arcade Noise, John Robinson from Science of Life, Malik Abdul Rahman, Vesa, a lot of people who had been seen on Bandcamp and SoundCloud, but hadn't had the chance to really expound and turn Bandcamp and SoundCloud into real life and interact with people who like their music. And so that expanded into bringing people like Tuamie and Lakim and all kind of other artists from all around into our circle and expanding it. So it's really interesting to start this thing. You know, Susie Analog also was a big influence and had played. So many amazing producers came through our doors, and I'm really grateful to have created that sort of platform for other artists to come through and give New York that boost of culture that it hadn't seen at that level yet. It started out, the very first show started out in my friend Chuck Le Garçon's basement, and the basement could only hold maybe 30 people or 40 people max, tightly in there. But we didn't know that like 125 people were going to come, and all 3 floors of his house were going to be like a house party. We had no way of really knowing that would happen, but it let us know right then, right there, oh wow, this is real. People want this. Our first show was like Tuamie, Malik Abdul Rahman, Quelle Chris, Vesa, Noah B. It's really crazy for a first show. I think Obliv had come through. It was really kind of special. And then we really quickly realized we couldn't do it at Chuck's house. We did one more and then overflowed into the backyard, and we're like, we need a bigger place. So there was this sound system. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but huge old school Jamaican style sound system. And forgive me, my mind is blanking out, but they had a backyard where they would store the sound system outside of their office, huge backyard. And so I approached them. I said, could we use your backyard to throw something? And so we started throwing it there. Now we had easily, 150, 200 people. Couldn't fit the backyard anymore. After a while, people were like, okay, what's happening? There's too many people back here. So we said, let's throw a block party. Threw a block party with them. That was great, but we needed someplace more consistent. So Converse had a space called Converse Rubber Tracks in Williamsburg. And it was a studio space that was free for artists to come record. And it was run in conjunction with Cornerstone, which is a marketing agency. And for 5 years, they were going to have this space open for artists. You had to sign up online and you could come and record there. But they also had a performance space in this same venue, huge warehouse, had a performance space. And it was, in my opinion, severely underutilized. Hardly any shows there. It just ran as a studio during the day. No shows at night. But the stage was there. A 14-foot projector. A bar. And I said, this space is so underutilized. I was there because I had gotten in. I signed up like many of artists did to use the studio space. And while I was there, I got to meet some people from Converse and Cornerstone who wanted to put a project out with me, which was the Brooklyn Good Guy project that I put out in conjunction with Converse. But while I was there, I said, while I'm here, I'm sponsored. Let me pitch you guys this idea. And this space easily holds 400 people. And so I pitched them the idea, and I kind of waited. They made me wait, like I want to say 3 weeks to get back to me. But they gave me the green light, and we threw our first one there. It was crazy, and it just so happened that it was the 1 year anniversary. It was the 1 year anniversary of us throwing it from Chuck's basement to there. So that first one that we did there, we did 4 of them there, and we did them, I think, maybe twice a year, or yeah, something like twice a year.
Dibiase, y'all make noise! Louder! Louder!
We did them there, and smaller events called Secret Sesh. In between the big events, we did Secret Sesh. We did them at Mophonic Studio. And the Mophonic Studio Secret Sesh was great because it was only maybe 200 people, but it was an outdoor patio deck. So we would barbecue, have music, gorgeous, and I'll show you the videos, you can see. But then we would do these big ones with Converse. And when you do an event with Converse, they have the liquor sponsor, and we have the budget to bring amazing people out like Illingsworth and Dibiase and Shigeto and Abjo and Lakim and Susie Analog, and just amazing producers, Obliv and Tuamie. Just crazy, just insane, really insane time in New York, and to be able to give New York that culture was really, and I didn't do it by myself. I had a partner named DJ Jester and another friend of mine named Pudge, who's a super dope MC, producer, and DJ who comes out of the LA beat scene with Dibiase and Raj G, RIP. So not officially. I haven't officially moved Beat Haus to Oakland fully yet. I have a vision for it here. And so what I wanted to do in Oakland was, there are people that know me from Beat Haus. It's weird because I'm an MC first, but it was so long that I had waited between putting out music that I feel more people started to know me from as the guy that throws Beat Haus as the MC Fresh Daily. So I took a nice reset from my personal life when I moved out here, and I needed 5 years to just reset myself and get myself in the right space of mind so I could get back to doing creative endeavors like music. And now that I've put out my music, I wanted to try out and see what Beat House would look like in Oakland. And I realized I'm not a native to Oakland, so I needed to be really, just time things correctly and be really respectful of the culture that pre-existed before me. A big sign of gentrification is people from somewhere else coming to somewhere new and just planting their flag and saying, this is how we do things where I'm from, right? And that's not what I'm about, and I don't think that's what the vibe of Beat House is about. I really wanted to see what was happening here. What were the artists here doing? What is the beat community doing? The artistic community here doing? How are they being present for each other? And so I went and I found a beautiful community here in Oakland being run by Smart Bomb. And they had a special event series. Milo! My dog is snoring. They had a beautiful event series here called Smart Bomb that I went to, and it was great. And then COVID happened, and we couldn't really go to events for almost 2 years straight. And during a lull in that where, it wasn't a lot of spikes in cases, I said, now might be a good time. Also, it was during the holiday season, so a lot of people were out of town. So I said, let's do something. And I brought some friends from the East Coast, brought some friends from the West Coast, and threw a secret sesh like how we used to do back in New York. In between the big events, do a private event just to test the waters. And it was amazing. It was amazing. We had Brain Orchestra, Ewonee, Mr.Dibiase, Quelle Chris, and then my good friend Maitre D DJ'd and played some beats as well. So it was really, really, really a fantastic time, and I want to do more here in Oakland. Well, I think the goal with Beat House is the same as it's ever been, which is to provide a relevant platform for beat makers, producers, and DJs. Not just a platform where, it's just a cultural hub where we get together and see each other and then go home. Or at the same time, not just something that's commercially viable and you want to be there so you can take Instagram pictures and show people that you went to something very cool. It needs to be full circle, exclusive and inclusive at the same time, which is a very hard feat to pull off, to make something feel exclusive, like I need to go to this, but also inclusive, like I belong here. And so that's always been my goal, is to provide a culturally relevant platform, not just any platform, but a culturally relevant platform, one that allows artists to be paid for their work, but also put them in front of the people that click like on SoundCloud for them and buy their music on Bandcamp, and make that connection while also connecting them to their laterally to their peers, or the artists who they feel are their peers, who they may have a general sense of respect for, but never met in real life.
Okay.
So doing that, I think, is a big goal for me. But personally, the goal in doing that, while doing that, is to make it self-sustaining, so that I'm not being drained, or me and my partners are not being drained of resources while providing other artists a platform. There has to be an ecosystem where the people that give this culturally relevant platform for artists are also compensated. And so I think a way that I've been brainstorming on making that happen is reaching out to some of the tech companies and some of the sponsors, and putting together a sponsorship deck that makes sense. That's not just a money grab, but a real partnership that makes sense. So this way we can get artists from other places to come to Oakland. Oakland and the Bay Area is really unique as a California hub, because when the rest of the country thinks of California, they think of Los Angeles. Very often the Bay Area gets passed over. So this is also another way of finding a way to bring culture from outside of the Bay Area to the Bay Area too. Oh, and one more thing. Another goal is to travel when the world obviously opens up again, if it ever opens up again. But it's also to not just have this here as a bubble or a pocket of culture that never spreads, but instead to say, we're doing Beat Haus Atlanta, we're doing Beat Haus Baltimore, we're doing, Beat Haus Dallas, Beat Haus Seattle, Beat Haus Portland, and really have the best and brightest from those places and bring them the best and brightest from other places. And that will create this network. Well, when we started Beat Haus Radio, DJ Jester and I created Beat Haus Radio as a way to stay relevant in between real-time events, right? Because I can do so much events. Even if I did one event a month, there's still another 29 days of content. What do we do, right? We do the recap videos, and we don't do live streaming. The reason why we didn't do live streaming is because if I can watch from the comfort of my home, why ever would I go, right? So we wanted to create the recap videos as a way to make people be like, "Ooh, I missed that. I can't wait to go to the next one," right? But in between that, what's a way that we could really connect people and give them the backstory behind Tuamie? How did Tuamie get the name Tuamie? How did this? What equipment does Obliv use to make his beats? And who is he listening to? And so these are the questions that I had, and DJ Jester and I were like, well, let's invest. I should say DJ Jester more, but he invested in, a professional setup to record, and we recorded him at his studio. Now that I don't live on the East Coast anymore, it's really hard to do that. But here in Oakland, we do have a professional studio, and it's called Youth Radio, YR Radio, and it's downtown Oakland, and we'll be recording Beat Haus out of Youth Radio. I'll put a link to that down below. I think the biggest difference between living in the Bay Area and New York is probably the pace. New York has a pace that's like this, and that never stops. It never stops, right? Click, 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 click. But the Bay Area's pace is more... maybe sometimes not even that fast. And I think that was the hardest thing for me to reconcile, was that pace, because I come from that pace. So imagine you're running at that pace and all the time, and it doesn't turn off. You're running at that pace. And then coming to somewhere where there is no real sense of urgency. And that's a little harder to reconcile if all you know is race, 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 race. And not only just racing, but everyone else racing next to you. Everyone pushing and shoving, trying to get ahead. Whereas, here, there's not that sense of urgency. There's a closer proximity to nature that you don't get in New York. So I would say the cost of living is comparable, but the quality of life is higher. And I think those are the biggest things. But the other thing about the Bay Area that's a difference is the ceiling is way lower as opposed to New York for opportunity. So if you are an artist, you're going to want to, and you're from the Bay Area, you're going to want to really put the Bay Area on your back, but you can only go so high. Like I said, the rest of the country really kind of thinks in terms of when they hear California, LA, Los Angeles, right? So it's interesting because as soon as I got here, I saw that's the ceiling right there. I could touch it, and I haven't touched it yet because I needed time to do me. But But for an artist that has a pace, that is really having a lot of goals, ceiling is a little lower than it would be in, say, a Los Angeles or a New York or an Atlanta for creative endeavors. But that's changing slowly because there's a lot of tech companies here that need culture. Tech companies mostly don't understand culture. They understand quantifiable metrics. They don't understand what culture is and what makes it dope. So I think there's a unique opportunity for the Bay Area to really marry technology and culture. It's funny because right now on the internet there's sort of a weird, almost and if you hear snoring in the background, it's my dog, I'm sorry. He is growling in the background. It's almost like a bad word to say lo-fi. Right now it's yes. But it's crazy. It's just another term for what my friend Black Spade calls good vibe music, like a lot of Jay Dilla, like soulful and just chill music, honestly, that's instrumental based. All of it is hip hop. All of it is dope to me. If I had any qualms or any thoughts on these sort of chill hop compilations or music to do homework to, like beats to do homework to kind of things, is diversity and inclusion. Sometimes I look at these playlists which really provide artists a platform to monetize and spread their name, and that list of artists don't look anything like me and I've never heard of them before, which is okay in the sense that I've never heard of them before. But when it's all homogenized in the sense of, maybe all white or all Asian or something, there is a problem because there's so many super dope talented artists, especially all around this country and other countries. So I think there is a small issue in terms of these lists that provide people with a platform and an opportunity to really spread their music being homogenized. What it does is it silos artists and spreads discord, because ultimately we're here for the music. But if only one kind of person is getting the spotlight. We were talking earlier about gatekeeping, and I think the best kind of gatekeeping, because gatekeeping right now online is also like a weird, nasty term, because the internet has removed the job of A&R and gatekeeper culturally. But I think the best kind of gatekeeping is a type of person that really is a student of music and understands the wide palette, that nothing is in binary of black and white. There's a whole spectrum of dope kinds of music in between. So that's something to really think about when you listen to these playlists and you notice that there's all these new beat makers on there, but the beat makers that that are really dope aren't on them. That should be a red flag, or at least an orange flag to you, to say something isn't right here. So if I had any thoughts on that, I love lo-fi beats and I love chill hop. It's all hip hop to me, and maybe I'm too old, I don't know, but I come from mushroom jazz. Do you remember mushroom jazz mixtapes? You remember those compilations, mushroom jazz, like coffee shop beats, like bookstore music? I come from that. So and that's all derivative of hip hop and jazz too, So I love those things, and those are the type of producers that I like to listen to also. Yeah, I think I love Selection. I love what they do. Andre Powers is a friend of mine. I love the artists on Selection. Shout out to Lakim and Abjo. We've done great events with selection, Beat Haus selection. It was amazing. And I think that they were a really necessary at a specific point in time for the culture, and they still are. But I think what's really interesting is the idea of taking that sort of gatekeeping, if you will, and like if you have a great ear for music, and this is why DJs are good DJs, specifically good DJs make for great gatekeepers if they are proactive in the culture and create playlists and create radio shows. It proliferates this music in a way, it spreads it further, it aggregates it, because they're putting, you trust their ear because they have a great taste in music, and you know they're not going to steer you wrong. And I think that's the reason why you think of like Oreos or Chips Ahoy, right? You see that bag, right? And you know, I like those cookies. And you know, every time I open that bag of cookies, it's going to be good. I think there's a very specific power in knowing that you have a good ear, creating and cultivating and sort of curating playlists and making music, and then making a business out of it. Because you've already established that your ear is great and that you could pick the artist, but how do you make that commercially viable? How do you make that into a business, right? I think quality control and consistency, doing something really well and then doing it continue, and it's not going to be easy. It's an arduous process. Starts off slow and you build it, and as you build it, because selection didn't happen overnight. But they kept going and they built a sound and expanded on it. And I think from that sound, and they created visuals to match that sound and created a culture around that sound. And wherever that evolves to, there are people that hate selection. There are people that love selection. There are people who are confused but amused, who don't know anything about the music, but they know it's a cool thing that maybe cute girls will be at or cute boys will be at. And so they go to take pictures, you know? So it doesn't matter. As long as they come there, they find their new favorite artist. And I think there's something really powerful and smart about that. Yeah. And I'd love to do the same. I think a way that I've tried to be both exclusive and inclusive is if I do shows, back when we did shows every month, every quarter, at the beginning of our show, I had what was called open aux cord, which means I had a sign-up list like an open mic, and I let 5 producers or 6 producers play 10 minutes of their beats. And I found a lot of amazing new acts for the radio show and for the next month's show that way. Some people were terrible, but most people were really great. So I think there's a way to be inclusive and exclusive and culturally relevant and commercially viable. I think NFT is possibly one of the next spaces for a platform like Beat Haus to exist in that commercially viable space. You know, I don't have both feet fully planted in the NFT Web3 space yet. I'm still learning, like many people are. But Selections Abjo is very prolific in this space. And he's a really great friend of mine. And he's been pulling my leg and pulling my arm and trying to drag me into this space for the longest time. And so I think the more I learn about it and the more I've learned about a way to take the platform that I've created for artists and as for myself as an MC and illustrator, because I'm nasty with the illustration too, as a way to marry those things. And what I like the most about it, from what I can understand, is I can take a piece of music and make it as a collaboration. And once it's on the blockchain, anyone who purchases that, I can split the music with them, whatever it was purchased for, and that is immediate. It's not like a 30-day wait for a check or anything. Once it's sold and it's on the blockchain and sold, that split is immediate, and that alone right there opens a world of possibilities for Beat Haus as a platform to say every month Beat Haus will, I don't even want to tell you these ideas, but here's one for free. If anyone wants to use it, go ahead. But let's say once a month Beat Haus says we have an exclusive from this producer, right? And we release it as an NFT. And then once that sells, let's say it sells for one Ethereum, right? 1 ETH. 1 ETH is what now? Like, is it 4,000 or something like that? Something crazy like that, right? If it sells for 1 ETH, which I think it would probably sell for more than 1 ETH, but let's say Beat Haus releases a new NFT every month. Let's say we have one with Abjo coming. If we release this with Abjo, the minute it gets purchased, whatever the split is, he immediately gets it. We immediately get ours. And whoever purchases that has a one-of-one music that they own now on the blockchain. And every month to make these collectible is crazy. A Beat Haus collection from a whole bunch of different producers exclusively made for Beat Haus on a platform like for NFTs could be insane. And creating visuals for it is right up my alley. So I think it could be a really crazy endeavor future. And we're not even talking, we haven't gotten into the deep weeds of NFT spaces. Someone currently spent a couple of $1 million on creating a venue in Web3 where they're going to be doing events. It's just, there's so much to wrap your brain around, but you know, Beat Haus started a label in, I want to say 2014 or 2015. And we had partners. And one thing I realized quickly was the more partners I had, it was a lot of creative input. And I'm someone that likes to have creative control. This idea of Beat Haus was my idea. And I had one partner, DJ Jester. And a good partnership is two people moving in the same direction or something. But with the label, it was 4 people. And while Jester and I were generally on the same thing, the other 2 people had ideas for things. And we only put out one project before dissolving the label about 2 years ago. And that was Ewonee's album called Radiance. And even if we drop nothing else ever again, this album is so amazing. It's so beautiful. It's Ewonee's first full project with no samples, with him playing everything. And going forward, I think if we were to enter that space again, it most likely would only be exclusive physical releases on vinyl or NFTs. You can follow me on social media at fresh.daily, fresh.daily, for all new music, art stuff. And for Beat Haus, you could follow us on Beat Haus Show. That's BEATHAUS Show, SHOW, Beat Haus Show. That's Twitter and that's Instagram and that's SoundCloud. For Fresh Daily, that's Twitter. Fresh.dot Daily, fresh.daily. That's Twitter, that's Instagram, that's SoundCloud, that's everything. But you can Google either Beat Haus Show or Fresh Daily, and we're probably the first things that come up. Peace.